Classic old-time radio all day long. This is Old Time Radio USA.
Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And right now, I'd like to just briefly mention an idea you ought to try tomorrow night, just before you sit down to dinner. Just pour yourself a glass of that good Petri California sherry. Petri sherry is the perfect before-dinner wine. Its cheerful, glowing amber color looks festive and, well, it sort of lends an air of importance to the occasion. And as for the wine itself, just taste it. That Petri sherry is not just ordinary wine, no, sir. One sip and you know that wonderful sun-ripened grapes went into its making. Yes, and you know that Petri sherry was carefully watched over every step of the way. Incidentally, Petri makes two kinds of sherry, regular sherry and Petri Pale Dry. If you're not sure just which kind you and your friends will like best, try them both. Don't buy one, buy two. But when it comes to sherry, or any other wine for that matter, be sure you always buy Petri. And now I'm certain our good friend Dr. Watson's waiting for us. Let's go in and join him.
Come in. Ah, there you are, Mr. Bartell. Punctual to the minute, as always.
Well, this is one doctor's appointment I'm eager to keep.
That's nice of you to say so, my boy. Draw up your usual chair and make yourself comfortable.
Thanks. Well, Doctor, today's April the 1st. Did anyone try and play any jokes on you?
Yes, you did, Mr. Bartell, but I'm happy to say that nobody caught me. Not as in the story that I'm going to tell you tonight, when an April Fool's Day prank certainly scored a bullseye.
I see you have the dispatch box out again, Doctor. Been refreshing your memory?
Yes, I have, Mr. Bartell. And when I tell you the adventure took place at 1881, I think you'll agree that after such a lapse of time, a man can hardly rely on memory alone.
1881? Say, Doctor, tonight's adventure must have been one of the really early ones.
Yes, it was indeed. In fact, to be exact, it took place only a little while after Sherlock Holmes and I had first met and had taken up lodgings together.
How was the great detective in those early days?
Profound mystery to me, Mr. Bartell. To give you an example, my boy, I'd shared our Baker Street lodgings with him for over a month before I was even certain of his profession, the knowledge of which I learnt to my awe and astonishment when our first adventure together took place.
Oh, that was the one you called A Study in Scarlet, wasn't it, Doctor?
That's right, Mr. Bartell. What a memory you've got, Study in Scarlet. But even after that adventure, I found myself wondering at times what I had let myself in for, sharing lodgings with such a strange companion. It was in one of those moods of doubt and confusion that my story begins. Late one March evening, I found myself in the neighborhood of Piccadilly Circus. It was cold, and a steady drizzle of rain had dampened my spirits. I thought that a glass of wine and the sound of music would put me in a better mood. And so, Mr. Bartell, I entered the Criterion restaurant. As I sat with a glass of rare vintage port at my elbow, the orchestra playing a dreamy Strauss waltz in the background, I couldn't help thinking of the last time that I'd been there. It was the night I met a young medical student by the name of Stanford. He was the man who first introduced me to Sherlock Holmes. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, and to my amazement, once again, young Stanford was standing before me.
Watson, or should I say Dr. Watson, how are you, my dear chap?
Hello, Stanford. Come and sit down.
Thanks. I'm glad to see that you're not holding any grudge against me.
Why on earth should I do that?
For introducing you to Sherlock Holmes. I've reproached myself ever since. I think he's as mad as a hatter.
Not at all. He may be eccentric. In fact, I'll admit that he is eccentric, but he's an extraordinarily interesting fellow. He'll make a great name for himself as a private detective one of these days. You'll see if I'm not right, Stanford.
I saw something about him in the paper the other day.
Yes, I expect that was the Lauriston Gardens affair, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
He's a brilliant man, Stanford. Quite brilliant. So I must admit he's difficult at times. He works like a fiend as a rule, but occasionally a reaction sets in for days at a time. He'll lie on our sofa, hardly uttering a word or moving a muscle from morning to night. bit depressing, I must say.
I think he takes himself too seriously.
Yes, perhaps you're right.
How would you like to join in a little plot?
Plot against Holmes?
Yes, just a rag, you know. We thought it'd be rather fun.
We?
Murphy and I, we were just talking about it. I'll call him over. Murphy?
Oh, is that Murphy? I've seen him before somewhere, haven't I?
I'm sure you must have done. He's been around at the hospital, and any time you go into the British Museum, you'll find him there. Nice fella, but dull. Definitely dull.
Yes, Stamford.
Oh, this is a friend of mine, John Watson. This is James Murphy.
How do you do? I think I've seen you at the hospital.
And I know I've seen you, Dr. Watson.
Oh, sit down and come and join us, won't you?
Oh, thank you very much.
I was just telling Watson about our little plot.
Oh, you mean about Sherlock Holmes?
Now, look here. I'd like you fellows to realize that Holmes is a very good friend of mine.
Oh, don't worry, Watson. This is all in good fun. Don't you realize what the date is tomorrow?
1st of April, isn't it?
Yes, April Fool's Day.
Oh, now I see. You're going to play an April Fool's Day joke on Holmes.
Yes, that's our plan.
Well, it's hardly our plan, Stamford. It's really Lady Anne Pardington's idea. You see, Holmes was very rude to her when she visited the hospital recently, and she wants to, take him down a peg or two.
Sounds innocent enough, but I must say he's inclined to be rather arrogant at times. Well, what's the plan?
Well, we'll need your help, Watson. You must be careful not to give the joke away. I'll bet you a $5 that Holmes falls for the whole story, hook, line, and sinker. Now, here's exactly what we're planning to do. Lady Anne is going to call on Holmes at Baker Street in the morning.
Lady Anne, I'm very flattered that you called to see me in my professional capacity.
Surely, my dear man, you didn't think this was a social call. You were much too rude to me at the hospital the other day for that.
That was the point I was trying to make. Please sit down, won't you?
Take this chair, won't you, Lady Anne? It's by far the most comfortable chair in the room.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Watson.
And now, what can I do to help you?
You've heard of the Elphinstone Emerald?
Oh, yes, indeed. A magnificent stone of very considerable value. An heirloom in your family, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. I keep it in a wall safe in my bedroom. This morning, when I had occasion to go to the safe, I discovered that the emerald had been stolen.
Stolen? Good Scott. What a shocking business. Of course, you want Mr. Holmes to recover it for you.
A remarkable deduction, my dear doctor. Lady Anne, when you opened the safe, did you observe any signs of it having been tampered with?
Oh, I think it's rather stupid to sit and answer questions here in Baker Street. Why don't you come over to my house in Cavendish Square and examine the safe for yourself? You are a detective, aren't you?
Lady Anne, just now you accused me of rudeness. I assure you that mine, at least, was unintentional.
Oh, come, Holmes. Don't be so touchy.
I can promise you a substantial fee, Mr. Holmes.
I'm a struggling practitioner in a new profession, eh? My poverty, but not my will, consents.
I pay thy poverty, and not thy will. You see, I can quote my Shakespeare, too, Mr. Holmes. My carriage is waiting, gentlemen. Let's drive over to Cavendish Square at once, shall we? This is the wall safe, Mr. Holmes.
Not too difficult a safe to crack for an expert. You placed the emerald in it last night, you say?
Yes, when I went to bed. And this morning, it had gone.
Well, surely, Holmes, this is a good occasion to use that magnifying glass that you're always fitting about.
An excellent occasion, my dear doctor. That's why I brought it with me. Uh-huh. It's very interesting.
What is it?
This safe was opened by an expert. There isn't a sign of its having been forced. Hello.
What have you discovered?
There's a peculiar tarnish on the steel knob. It was obviously handled by someone whose fingers are habitually stained with chemicals.
Amazing, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear doctor. Where does that door lead to?
My boudoir.
I should like to examine it if I may.
Oh, but of course.
Thank you, Lady Anne.
Dr. Watson, this is the most beautiful April Fool's Day fraud I've ever
I
played.
must say, Murphy was right. He has fallen for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Just the same, I'm beginning to feel guilty. I can't help feeling a bit disloyal.
Oh, nonsense. It's all in fun.
Are Stamford and Mr. Murphy listening?
Yes, they're next door in my drawing room. I'm sure their ears are positively glued to the keyhole.
Well, I do hope Holmes won't be angry with me.
Shh, here he comes.
Nothing of any interest in there. The windows haven't been tampered with. We may presume, therefore, that the thief did not enter by an upstairs window. Lady Anne.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
This room has not been touched since you discovered your loss?
Oh, no. I told the servants to leave it exactly as it was while I came to fetch you.
Splendid, splendid. Deep pile carpet, eh? Could be better. The thief was a tall man with a long stride.
Oh, come, Holmes. I know your methods, but there aren't any footprints on this carpet that you can identify, even with your magnifying
My
glass.
dear doctor, I've studied many crimes, and I've never seen one yet that was committed by a flying creature. As long as a criminal remains upon his two legs, there must be some trifling displacement can be detected by a keen observer. I assure you that the marks on this carpet indicate that the thief was a tall man with a long stride. Traces of tobacco ash. Pipe tobacco. Shag tobacco that sells at 4p an ounce.
Oh, now, really, Mr. Holmes, how can you possibly identify an individual tobacco?
Oh, it's a hobby of mine. In fact, I've even written a monograph on the subject. Now, one more look at the safe itself. Hello. What's this powdered dust here? What? It's rosin. Trace of rosin. Lady Anne, I suggest that you get in touch with Scotland Yard at once.
You mean that you've solved it, Holmes?
I mean, my dear doctor, that I can give you a reasonably complete picture of the thief, and that picture is so individual that I'd be surprised if it would fit more than one man in London.
Why, this is pure magic, Mr. Holmes. Please describe him to me.
Well, he's a tall man. The width of his stride indicates that, and he's thin.
Well, what enables you to tell that, Holmes?
His footprints have made a remarkably light indentation on the lap of the carpet. Our thief dabbles extensively in chemicals, as indicated by the tarnishing of the knob on the safe, and the traces of rosin would suggest that he plays the violin also. He smokes shag tobacco, has a great practical knowledge of the ways of combination locks, and he's obviously in close contact with the criminal classes.
How do you know that, Mr. Holmes?
Well, he wouldn't steal a famous stone unless he knew how to dispose of it through some trustworthy fence.
Yes, it's a very comprehensive picture, Holmes. I almost feel as if I knew the chap.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm sure there's only one man in London, and it shouldn't be hard to trace him.
I agree entirely, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson, I think the joke has gone far enough.
Joke? What do you mean?
You're quite right, Holmes, in saying there's only one such man in London. You've just given a perfect description of yourself.
April Fool. Dr. Stamford, Mr. Murphy, you can come in now.
April Fool, Holmes.
April Fool.
April Fool.
Into the drawing room, everyone. Let us drink a glass of wine to Mr. Holmes, who has so graciously forgiven us for the little trick we played on him. And also to Dr. Stamford, who thought of the whole idea.
No hard feelings, Holmes.
Oh, no, Doctor. Oh, it was a rather embarrassing experience.
When Murphy told me about the plan, I just couldn't resist joining him.
Ah, here you are, Holmes. Here's a drink.
Thank you, Stanford.
You know Murphy, don't you?
No, I don't think we've met. How do you do, sir?
How'd you do, Holmes? How did you like the little game we played on you?
It was rather a salutary experience. I suppose you gave them all the details to build up the picture of me, hey, Doctor?
Yes, I did, Holmes, and knowing some of your methods, we tried to plant every clue that you'd pick up.
Very neat job, too, and incidentally, a perfect example of the dangers of deductions based on purely circumstantial evidence. I shall profit from this little lesson.
I must say it was worth a fortune in emeralds to see your face, Holmes, when you realized what you'd done.
Well, the joke's over now. By the way, where is Lady Anne?
I believe she said she was going to fetch the Elphinstone emerald. She thought you might be interested in seeing it.
She probably feels the sight of it will salve my wounded vanity.
Oh, here she comes now.
Mr. Holmes! Mr. Holmes!
What's wrong?
What's happened, Lady Anne?
The emerald. It's not where I hid it. This time it's really stolen.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a few seconds, so I've just time to remind you that there are many, many different types of wine. But if you want one wine that's fine for almost any occasion, then you want Petri California Sherry. Petri Sherry is fine before dinner, of course, but Petri Sherry is good after dinner, too. And it's the perfect wine for cocktail time or any time friends drop in. Everybody will love the real heart-of-the-grape flavor you get in every sip of Petri Sherry. And you can serve Petri Sherry proudly, because those letters P-E-T-R-I spell the proudest name in the history of American wine. Petri wine. Well, Dr. Watson, your April Fool Day plot kind of backfired on you, didn't it?
Yes, Mr. Bartell, it was a perfect example of the biter bit.
Well, what happened next? I suppose Sherlock Holmes went into action once again.
That's Mr. Bartell, and it gladdened my heart to see the change in the fella. I confess I'd felt rather ashamed of my part in the prank, for I could see that Holmes's pride had been hurt. But now, with a definite crime before him, the difference was amazing. He suddenly became a dynamo, galvanized into action as he stood there, firing questions at the other members of the...
Lady Anne, who beside yourself knew of this fresh hiding place?
Both Murphy and I did.
Yes, after we'd left our deliberate clues on the safe, we went with Lady Anne and saw her secrete the emerald in the top drawer of her dressing table.
We thought it would be all right there. After all, as soon as the joke was over, I was going to put it back in the safe.
Now, I think our wisest plan before we question the servants would be for each one of you who were in this April Fool's Day prank to submit to being searched.
Holmes, surely you don't suggest that any one of us took the emerald?
No, Stafford, I don't. But if any one of you four are not guilty, this will be a splendid way of proving your innocence.
I say, steady, Holmes. You're not suggesting that Lady Anne stole her own emeralds, are you?
Are you, Mr. Holmes?
I'm suggesting nothing, but I may point out that the recent vogue for the insurance companies has provided another interesting motive for these so-called thefts.
Oh, I resent your insinuation. It's outrageous.
Lady Anne, if I'm to recover your emerald, I must at least consider every possibility. A search is the most immediate practical action, and perhaps you'll retire into the next room while I persuade these gentlemen to submit to being searched.
Very well, but I think you're in danger of making a fool of yourself once again.
Wait, don't go, Lady Anne. A search won't be necessary.
What do you mean, Murphy?
I must throw myself on your mercy, Lady Anne. I confess that I stole the emerald.
Murphy!
After you put it in the drawer, Lady Anne, I slipped back into the room and took it out.
Murphy, that's a criminal action.
I know it, but I'm poor. I need money desperately for my mathematical research. I knew the emerald was priceless, and I couldn't resist the temptation to take advantage of a joke. Here, Lady Anne, here's the stone, and please don't prosecute me. Please don't. It'd be my ruin.
May I examine the emerald, Lady Anne? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Murphy, I won't pretend that I'm not deeply shocked. I must ask you to leave my house.
But you won't prosecute me, will you? It was a moment's temptation.
No, I won't prosecute you.
Holmes, what are you doing with the emerald?
Well, knowing something of the deceptive ways of thieves, I came on this case fully prepared to test the emerald when I found it. Now, a drop of this acid from this vial, so...
Mr. Holmes, what are you doing? You'll enter the stone.
No, not if it's a true emerald. Look at that.
Good Lord, the acid's eating to the stone as if it was sugar.
Then that means...
It means, Lady Anne, that Mr. Murphy has just imperiled his honor and his freedom to steal a singularly beautiful fake.
Mr. Holmes, this joke has turned into a nightmare. Is there no way of recovering my emerald?
I hope so, Lady Anne. I've been taking steps in their logical order. The servants have all been questioned. We've searched Mr. Stamford and Mr. Murphy.
Yes, most humiliating experience. Made me feel like a criminal.
Well, personally, I was only too thankful to submit to a search this time. I knew I had nothing to worry about.
And you yourself, Lady Anne, you consented to being searched by the police matron that Holmes sent for?
Only because he threatened to send for the police if I didn't. But distasteful though it was, I'd rather endure that than have this story on the front pages of the newspapers.
And in spite of all these rather unfriendly proceedings, we've got exactly nowhere as regards finding the emerald.
No, Stamford, but we have at least eliminated the possibility that the thief is secreting the jewel on his person.
It's still somewhere in these two rooms, eh, Holmes?
I think so, though there is one remaining possibility.
And that is?
That the fake stone was substituted for the real emerald sometime before all of you engineered your April Fool's Day joke.
Oh, no, Mr. Holmes, that's not possible. I know it was the genuine emerald I took out of the safe this morning.
How can you be sure? The substitute was an excellent imitation. Without a chemical test such as I performed, it would be hard to be certain.
I can tell you why I'm certain. Last night, Papa came to dinner and brought a Mr. Vanderleider of Amsterdam. He examined the stone, and you'll agree that a jewel expert like that couldn't be fooled.
That's true, Lady Anne. And what did you do with the emerald after Mr. Vanderleider left?
I locked it in my safe and went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't unlock the safe again until Dr. Stamford and Mr. Murphy came here this morning.
That settles it, then. The real emerald is still hidden somewhere in these two rooms.
But where? That's the question.
I must say it's completely mystifying.
Well, let's go back to what we were all doing at the exact moment you came into the room, Lady Anne, and informed us of the loss of your stone. Now, we were...
we were drinking a toast to you
That's
and...
it.
Lady Anne, hard thinking is, well, it's thirsty work.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get you something. A glass of port, perhaps.
No, thank you. But I observe that you have a remarkably comprehensive assortment of liqueurs. I wonder if I might have a glass of creme de menthe.
Oh, of course. I'll get it for you.
Creme de menthe in the middle of the day, Holmes.
I knew you were eccentric, but this really...
Holmes, this bottle, it clinged as I picked it up.
I thought it might, Lady Anne.
There's something inside it.
Allow me, madam. Thank you. I'm sure you won't mind if I waste this liqueur on the aspidestra. So. Lady Anne, allow me to restore to you the Elphinstone Emerald.
Great Scott.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Ingenious. The one safe hiding place in the room. Where could a green gem be more effectively hidden than in a bottle of green liqueur?
But who stole it? Who substituted the fake stone?
Frankly, I don't care. The gem is restored. That's all that matters. I prefer not to go to court. Neither you nor I, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, would show up in the best of lights. And my father would disapprove of this whole affair, I'm afraid.
Just as you wish, Lady Anne. In either case, I shall expect your check for my services in due course.
Here we are at the Criterion again, Stamford. Won't you come in and join us for lunch?
Thanks, Watson, but I'll keep the cab and go on. I actually have a patient this afternoon. A rare and delightful experience for a young doctor, as you probably know.
As rare and delightful as a client is for a young detective, Mr. I quite understand, and I'm correspondingly grateful to you for your profitable hopes.
I'm glad it was profitable for you. Personally, I feel pretty stupid about the whole thing. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye, old fella.
Goodbye. 39 Onslow Square, cabby.
You're remarkably quiet, Mayford.
Well, I'm afraid my conscience won't let me do much talking, Doctor. I'm heartily ashamed of myself. Well, thanks for the lift. I'll leave you chaps.
Oh, nonsense. You'll join us for lunch, Murphy.
But,
no buts about it. I insist. Come on.
Well, awfully nice of you.
Oh, come, Murphy. Any one of us can make a foolish mistake. It's just lucky that you didn't have to pay for yours.
Monsieur wishes a table.
Yes, for 3, please.
This way, monsieur. Does this table please you?
Excellent, thank you.
By George, I'm as hungry as a hunter. How about you, Murphy?
No, I'm afraid I have very little appetite. This whole case has upset me dreadfully.
You mustn't take it too much to heart, Murphy. By the way, Doctor, I'd like to have your opinion on the case. Who do you think staged the theft of the emerald today?
Perfectly obvious to me. Lady Anne Pardington did it herself to collect insurance money. If she hadn't, she'd have insisted on your finding the thief. But you needn't worry, old chap. You'll get your fee all right, I'm sure of that.
Oh, I'm not worrying about the fee. But I assure you, Lady Anne did not engineer that fraud today.
You mean that it was Stanford?
Tell him who was responsible, my dear Murphy.
But how should I know?
Oh, come now, Murphy. Let's not fence any longer. You did an excellent job, a superlative job. I was almost sorry to spoil it for you.
I don't think I understand you, Holmes.
Oh, yes, you do, Murphy. You're a splendid actor, too. I was so deeply touched when you had apparently stolen a fake jewel, and all the time you knew that the real one was safely hidden in the bottle of creme de menthe. To be abstracted at your leisure. You scoundrel.
Holmes, do you mind telling me what's going on here? I'm completely and absolutely in the dark.
Surely it's obvious, my dear doctor. The imitation emerald was a brilliant copy.
What makes you so sure of that, my dear Holmes?
Because this April Fool's Day hoax was only conceived yesterday, or that is what you wish the others to believe. Such a superb paste gem could not have been made at such short notice. Therefore, it must have been prepared by someone who knew about the hoax before it was arranged. Now, my dear doctor, when Stamford told you about the plan last night, whose idea did he say it was?
He told me that it was Lady Anne Pardington's plan.
Precisely. And yet Lady Anne referred to it today as Stamford's idea. Obviously, you, my dear Murphy, presented the plan to each as the notion of the other, and so only you could have arranged the real theft behind the hoax. I repeat, a splendid job.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. May I also compliment you on your cleverness in frustrating my plot?
Look here, what is all this? One of you is a criminal, the other is a detective. Yet you're throwing each other compliments as if you were in the same profession.
The dividing line between the criminal and the criminal investigator is thinner than you might imagine, my dear doctor.
How very true, my dear Holmes. Would you consider coming over to my side of the line? Together we'd make an unbeatable team.
Oh, you flatter me. Nevertheless, I must decline your offer, Mr. Murphy.
Oh, a pity. On your side of the line, you'll never be a rich man. By the way, for your edification, my name is not Murphy, though Stamford insists on thinking it is.
Then what is your name, you scoundrel?
Your friend says the word scoundrel so much better than you, Doctor. My name is Mercury.
Oh, indeed. Spelled M-U-R-T-R-Y?
No. Dear me, I have so much trouble with my name. People will either misspell it or mispronounce it. I'm afraid I'll have to begin calling it the way it looks. Moriarty. Moriarty.
Moriarty. I shall remember that name. I have a feeling we shall meet again.
I trust that we shall. You won the first round, Sherlock Holmes, I admit that. But I believe that a return match is indicated.
I shall look forward to it, Moriarty. And now, Doctor, I can't stand your baleful glare any longer. Let's order lunch, shall we?
Doctor, that was a pretty hectic April Fool's Day.
Yes, it was. I never want to see another one exactly like it.
I don't blame you. You know, I'd sure hate to have someone come to my house and pull a trick like that on me.
Why, Mr. Bartell, do you have a precious emerald you fear may be stolen?
Are you kidding? I wouldn't know the difference between a precious emerald and a piece of green glass. But when it comes to rubies, now that's something else.
Oh, you would know a ruby when you saw it?
Sure, because a ruby has exactly the same color as a glass of Petri California port held up to the light.
Mr. Bartell, you can find more excuses for talking about Petri wine than any man in the entire world. Believe me.
Excuses, Doctor? I don't need an excuse to talk about Petri wine. Why, there's a wine that actually speaks for itself. If I may borrow a phrase from Shakespeare or somebody. There's no other wine quite like Petri wine because only Petri wine is made by the Petri family. And the Petri family has been making wine for generations. They've been handing down from father to son, years and years of knowledge and experience of the fine art of turning luscious grapes into clear, fragrant, delicious wine. Yes, and because the making of Petri wine is a family affair, those letters P-E-T-R-I on a bottle of wine are the personal assurance of the Petri family that every drop of wine in that bottle is good wine. You never miss with a Petri wine because Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, what's the prescription for next week's story?
Well, next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a rather unusual story. It concerns a series of strange disappearances and a murder without apparent reason, and yet it was a case that Sherlock Holmes solved without ever meeting any of the suspects. I call it Singular Affair of the Disappearing Scientist.
Well, I'm sure we'll all want to hear that one, Doctor.
Oh, I'm so well. Before you go, Mr. Bartell, I want to urge our friends to do all they can to save on the use of all wheat and rice products, and also fats and oils. There are millions of families literally starving to death in Europe and Asia. We're not being asked to give them our food. We're just being asked to take it easy on certain foods so that there will be some left for them to buy. I know there isn't one person listening to me tonight who would knowingly let anyone starve. And remember, unless you do help, thousands of little children will starve. So please, let's share a meal and save a life.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Study in Scarlet. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petri family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Your favorite old-time radio shows from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. You're listening to Old Time Radio USA, part of the WOTR radio network.
The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The original and immortal stories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, dramatized anew, with Sir Ralph Richardson as Dr. Watson and Sir John Gielgud in the role of Sherlock Holmes. And now, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, with Sir John Gielgud as Sherlock Holmes and Sir Ralph Richardson as our storyteller, Dr. James Watson.
In the third week of November, in the year 1895, a dense yellow fog settled down upon London. From the Monday to the Thursday, I doubt if it was ever possible to see the opposite houses from our window in Baker Street. The first of these 3 days, Sherlock Holmes spent in music, and in cross-indexing his huge book of criminal references. But when, for the fourth time, we saw the greasy, heavy brown swirls still drifting past us and condensing in oily drops on the window panes, Holmes' whole impatient nature could endure such drab existence no longer. It was fortunate for both of us that there suddenly arrived for him a telegram.
Mycroft, Watson, it's from Mycroft, thank heaven.
Your brother, Holmes?
Of course. You remember him from that affair of the Greek interpreter, of course.
Oh, of course, yes. Even if it's difficult to think of you with a family.
Oh.
You're an isolated phenomenon.
No, not so long as Mycroft thrives. Believe it or not, Watson, Mycroft is an even more remarkable man than I am.
Well, what does this remarkable brother of yours do in Whitehall? I seem to remember he's some kind of post under the government.
Under? My dear Watson, Mycroft is the government.
Oh, come, my dear.
He draws £450 a year, remains a subordinate, with no ambitions of any kind, and yet the same great powers which I have turned to the detection of crime make Mycroft the central clearinghouse of every fragment of vital knowledge in the country.
Oh, my dear.
Everyone consults him, from the highest in the land. There's no state secret which he does not share. And that, again, is why this telegram is so remarkable.
And I still don't know what's in it.
Yeah, read it, man.
Must see you about Cadogan West. Coming at once, Mycroft.
Yes, and perhaps you'll be able to tell me, Watson, who this Cadogan West is. You're always buried in the newspapers. The name sounds vaguely familiar, I must confess.
Yes, of course, Holmes. He's the young fellow who was found dead on the Underground Railway on Tuesday morning.
Ah, found dead. And on the Underground, you said?
Yeah, well, quite literally on it, Holmes, lying just beside the track outside Aldgate Station. I remember it all now. He'd plainly fallen out of a carriage.
Or been thrown out, eh? Where was he travelling from?
Nobody knows. He didn't have a ticket.
No ticket. Dear me, Watson, this is really very singular. What else is known about him? Do you remember?
27 years of age, I think, yes. And engaged to be married. And he was a clerk at the Woolwich Arsenal. The naval office, you know.
Beautifully succinct, Watson. Government employee, eh? So behold the link with Brother Mycroft. Ah, and here comes Mycroft himself, if I'm not mistaken. I know that heavy step.
Sherlock, my dear fellow. This is a most annoying business.
Welcome, my dear Mycroft.
Oh.
Ah, and Lestrade with you, too. The good Lestrade of Scotland Yard. We are honoured.
Your servant, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson.
Hello, Lestrade.
I must sit down, Sherlock.
Oh, yeah.
How are you? How do you do, sir?
How are you, Dr. Watson? You'll forgive us, I'm sure.
Oh, I never have any secrets from Watson, Mycroft.
But this is...
Yes, but you can count on my discretion, sir.
Very well, but... Lestrade, close the door. Make certain no one can be listening.
Very good, Mr. Holmes.
As you know, I dislike altering my habits, Sherlock. In the present state of Siam, it's most awkward that I should be away from the office, but the powers that be would take no denial. I've never seen the Prime Minister so upset. And as to the Admiralty, it's buzzing like an overturned beehive.
Really? And all because of a dead clerk without a railway ticket in his pocket.
You know the facts, then?
My invaluable Watson has just been priming me.
Oh, as much as I could, only what I've been reading in the papers.
What the papers couldn't mention, Doctor, was that if West didn't have a ticket in his pocket, he at least had something else.
Aha.
Some technical papers, Sherlock. And I need say no more than that they were... Lestrade, no one can overhear us?
No one, sir.
The Bruce Pardington plans, Sherlock.
Well,
Great heavens, man, you've heard of them. You must have heard of them. The plans of the Bruce Pardington submarine.
I know the name, of course, and of the invention.
Tush, Sherlock. You may take it from me that naval warfare becomes an impossibility within the radius of a Bruce Pardington.
Is that so?
Of course, the world has heard of the submarine, but the plans themselves have been most closely guarded. There isn't a foreign power that would give a fortune for them. Under no conceivable circumstances were they to be taken from the office at Woolwich. And yet here we find them, in the pockets of a dead junior clerk in the heart of London.
They've been found, then?
No, Doctor.
But you said that
10 papers were taken from the safe at Woolwich, and there were only 7 in the pockets of this wretched youth. The 3 most essential are gone, stolen, vanished. Sherlock, you must drop everything to find them.
Indeed, but I may be busy, Mycroft.
Oh, never mind your petty puzzles of the police court. This is vital, international.
Then why don't you solve it yourself? You can see as far as I can.
It's a question of getting details. Give me your details and I'll solve you anything from an armchair. But to run here and there and to cross-question railway guards and to lie on my face with a lens to my eye, you know my methods, Sherlock. No, you're the fellow, the only one in the world. If you've a fancy to see your name in the next honours list...
Oh, really, Mycroft, I play the game for the game's own sake, and on those terms only.
Well,
I'll do what I can.
Thank heaven. Doctor, if you would be good enough to pass over the whiskey and soda...
Certainly, of course.
Thank you. Now, Sherlock, the facts.
And so Lestrade and I, at first rather silent before those 2 remarkable brothers, came to hear of the events that had led up to the theft of the vital plans. We learnt that the official guardian of the papers had been the famous government expert, Sir James Walter, that there were 2 keys to the safe. Sir James had one himself, and that he'd spent the fatal night at his home in Berkeley Square, a fact that was vouched for by his brother, Colonel Valentine Walter. The other key was kept by the chief clerk, and he also was at his home that night. We argued, Lestrade and I, that Cadogan West, the traitor, must have obtained a 3rd key.
Yes, that he presumably travelled to London with the papers to sell them to some foreign agent.
And that perhaps a price had not been agreed, and that he'd set off back to Woolwich to return the plans to the safe.
The agent had followed him, murdered him in the train.
And that the most vital of the papers was taken from his pocket, and that his body was thrown onto the line.
Well, that's good, Watson. Good. You argue admirably, and you too, Lestrade. Yes, as you describe it, it holds together at least. But if you're right, the case is at an end. What is there for us to do, Mycroft?
To act, Sherlock. To act. Of course the explanation holds together. Yet all my instincts are against it. As I can see that yours are, there are too many circumstances unresolved.
Well, at least it'll serve to break the bleak monotony of this fog. Come along, Watson. And you too, Lestrade.
Yes, Mr.
Mycroft. Oh, no, it's no good asking you, of course.
No.
We'll begin our investigations, I think, by a visit to Aldgate Station.
I'll get my coat.
Goodbye, Mycroft. You shall have my report in due course. Oh, before we go, pray write me the names of the most important foreign agents you know to be operating at present here in London.
Very well. There are only 3. There are your names.
Thank you, Mycroft. Come, Watson, to Aldgate. So then. Fortunately, the fog has lifted a little at last. This is the spot, Lestrade.
It is, Mr. Holmes. That's where the young fellow's body lay. Just there beside the track, where it comes out of the tunnel.
Ah, yes, interesting. Most interesting. Do you notice the presence of anything, Watson?
No. Nothing at all, Holmes.
Well, shall I put it then, the absence of anything?
Yeah. Well, there. Of course. of blood.
Just so. And yet, as I understand it, there was a considerable wound, Lestrade.
The bone was crushed right into the head.
The railway carriage, then, if he was murdered in a carriage, must be covered in blood.
No, Doctor. Every single carriage on this line that night has been examined.
Inside?
Of course. Where else?
Nothing. I suppose, Lestrade, that except at a junction like Aldgate here, there are no great numbers of points on a railway system like this.
Oh, I know very few, I'd say.
Yet here there are so many, you see, and all on a curve, just as the lines begin to come out of the station. Well, the case grows in interest, Watson. I must study Mycroft's list of spies in the hansom. Thank you, Lestrade. I shall be in touch with you when Watson and I have paid our little visit.
Our visit home?
Yes, to Berkeley Square.
But Cadogan West lived at Woolwich.
Nevertheless, we visit Berkeley Square. Come, Watson. Our business is with Sir James Walter, the distinguished government expert whose decorations and accomplishments fill at least 2 whole columns in Who's Who. Good day, Lestrade.
Yet in this case of surprises, we still had one more when we arrived at Berkeley Square. We were ushered into a dimly lit drawing room in the house of the great statesman-scientist, and we were joined there by a very tall and handsome gentleman of 50 or so, who introduced himself as Sir James' brother, Colonel Valentine. And from him we learnt, to our distress, that Sir James was dead.
This morning, Mr. Holmes, this morning. You will forgive me, I've hardly recovered from the blow.
I'm deeply sorry, Colonel Valentine, deeply sorry. How did he die, may I ask?
It was this horrible scandal of the plans. My brother was a man of very sensitive honor. The papers were in his charge, you understand. It broke his heart.
Yes, sincerely sorry. We had hoped that he might give us some indications that would help us to clear the matter up.
Well, it was as much a mystery to him as to all of us, Dr. Watson.
He had no doubt, I suppose, that Cadogan West was guilty.
None, sir. Consider the facts, after all. The young fellow and his fiancée were walking to Woolwich Theatre that night. Suddenly, as they were passing the naval offices, he darted away and left her in the fog.
And she never saw him again. Dreadful. But why this sudden disappearance? Can you explain it?
He'd obviously gone to steal the papers. No doubt some agent had corrupted him. He needed money. He took the papers to London and met his death by some form of double-crossing, as I believe it's known in such circles.
Yes, of course. That's the only explanation indeed.
But you can understand, Mr. Holmes, how deeply disturbed I am.
Naturally, Colonel. Forgive me for having taken up so much of your time already. Come, Watson, we must take our leave. Goodbye, Colonel.
Good day, sir.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
And now, Watson, to Baker Street. Then I shall leave you for a little on business of my own, but we shall meet again later tonight at Goldoni's restaurant in the Gloucester Road in Kensington. You'll join me there at 9, Watson, and kindly bring a jemmy, a dark lantern, and a revolver with you.
In a moment, we continue this week's story in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And now we continue The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, with Sir John Gielgud as Sherlock Holmes and Sir Ralph Richardson as Dr. Watson.
It had to be. Once more, Sherlock Holmes was at his most mysterious. I watched him in Baker Street pore over a map of London, consulting again and again the list of known foreign agents which Mycroft had given him.
There are numerous small fry, but only 3 key men worth considering in connection with the sale of the plans to a foreign power. Adolph Meyer in Westminster, Louis La Rothier in Notting Hill, and Hugo Oberstein of Caulfield Gardens, Kensington.
Yet how could Holmes tell which of the 3 was most likely? In the late afternoon, he went out. The fog was still persistent, although less heavy than in the morning, and just before 9, I made my own way through it, wrapped heavily in a bulging overcoat, and so met him, as arranged, in Goldoni's restaurant, where he'd just finished dinner.
Watson, my dear, infallible Watson. Let me offer you a cup of coffee.
No, thanks.
Well, this is quite a singular adventure, Watson. I fear that up to now I've kept you rather in the dark.
You always do.
The tools I mentioned. The burglar's tools. You've got them.
Under my coat. That's why I haven't dared to take it off.
Excellent. The proprietor's been so very kind as to present me with this cigar. Do have it, my dear fellow.
No, thank you.
They're less poisonous than one would expect.
Oh, well, thank you. But I'd rather have an explanation.
Well, so you shall. What is it exactly that you want me to explain?
Whose house is it we're going to burgle?
Oh, yes, of course. The house of Mr. Hugo Oberstein at 13 Caulfield Gardens.
What, the third name on your brother's list?
The same. Come, Watson. Waiter, my hat and coat. It is time for us to go.
But how do you know that Oberstein's the one? There were 3 names on the list.
By the fact that there was no blood beside the railway line at Aldgate Station or in any of the railway carriages of the trains that night.
But, my dear Holmes...
Come, it isn't such a mystery. Quite elementary, in fact. It all hinges on the fact that this young man had no ticket in his pocket.
Meaning simply that he must have lost it once he was in the train.
Meaning that he was never in the train at all.
Good heavens.
But consider, Watson, is it a coincidence that the body is found at the very point where the train pitches and sways as it comes round a curve over the railway points? The body was on the roof, Watson.
The roof. The roof. Of course.
He had met his death elsewhere, and then the body was laid on the roof of a carriage, and it rolled off onto the line at Aldgate just as the train swung round. There was no blood, of course, because the murder had been done elsewhere.
Couldn't he have been dropped from a bridge?
Impossible. The carriage roofs are slightly rounded. He was placed.
Placed? Placed? But how? And where?
Barely 100 yards from where we are now.
Huh?
It's a simple matter of consulting a map of London, my dear fellow, as I did, and I found that of the addresses given to us by Mycroft, the only one adjacent to this particular branch of the Aldgate line is number 13 Caulfield Gardens.
Oberstein's house. Oh, splendid, Holmes, splendid. You've never risen to a greater height.
Thank you, my dear fellow. And here, if I'm not mistaken, is the house itself. I've been able to ascertain that Oberstein left hastily for the continent yesterday afternoon. So we plainly cannot call upon him in the ordinary way, and so we shall burgle his empty house for evidence. There seems to be nobody in sight. Are you quite ready, Watson?
Yes. It's not the first time that we've gone housebreaking, is it? We're almost experts. Remember the Milverton case, Holmes? Oh, dash it.
Now, Watson, control yourself. I thought we were supposed to be experts.
Yes, well, the Milverton case was 13 years ago.
Ah, yes, time flies, does it not? Here we are. I fancy this back room's the one we're looking for.
Yes, you were right about the railway, Holmes. It's just below the window.
I thought so.
One of those places where the underground comes to the surface. Deuced noisy house to live in, I'd say.
But a convenient one for the disposing of corpses. Listen, there's a train coming now. You stay there, Watson, and watch how closely beneath the window the carriage roofs pass.
What are you doing, Holmes?
Prowling about, seeing what I can find.
The missing papers, eh?
Of course not. There's someone on the continent by this time. No, anything I can lay my hands on that might serve as a clue. There's a box here.
What's in it, Holmes?
Attend to your own business, man. The train. Push open the window.
A few feet, Holmes. A few feet below us.
Just so. And given the fact that a train pulled up outside there that night, as I checked they sometimes do, because of an intersection beyond the tunnel...
The thing's simplicity itself. And look, Holmes. Here are bloodstains on the sill.
Oh, you're becoming quite observant, my dear fellow. I noticed them the moment we came in. However, this little box, do you see it?
What's in it?
Cuttings. From the personal column of the Globe newspaper, if I'm not mistaken, judging by the print and colour. As you know, I've made a study of such things.
Hold the lantern, Holmes. Let me see.
Yeah, they're pinned together in consecutive order. It's plainly the way in which Oberstein communicated with his confederate.
Here we see. Yes. Stuff waits you when goods delivered, terms agreed, signed, Pierrot. And here's another. It's the last of them. Look, Holmes. Monday night after 9, 2 taps. Payment in hard cash when commission fulfilled.
Also signed Pierrot. And Monday night. Significant, Watson. I think that a visit to the Globe offices would not be amiss before we retire for the night. Then a lazy day tomorrow, perhaps, except that you'll have a couple of telegrams to send off.
Telegrams to whom?
One to my brother and the other to Lestrade, asking them both to meet us in this house here tomorrow evening, just before 9 o'clock.
In this house, Holmes?
Yes, the front room this time, I think. Yes, the front room.
What I don't understand is why you brought us here to Kensington at this time of night, Mr. Holmes.
To show you the thief, Mycroft. Have you seen the latest message from Pierrot? Show him this morning's newspaper, Watson.
Yes, there you are, there you are.
Tonight, same hour, same place, 2 taps. Your own safety at stake. My dear Sherlock, if he answers that, we've got him.
That's exactly what I thought myself when I put it in.
Unless it was Cadogan West after all, of course, in which case he can't come.
Oh, I fancy it wasn't West. No young man would think to leave his fiancée alone in a foggy street while he rushed off to commit a daring robbery. He'd planned more carefully so as to be alone at the time. No.
No, wait, Holmes, wait. Footsteps. Someone's coming to the front door.
Excellent. Do you 3 hide behind this inner one, whilst I go and let him in. Come in, sir, this way. You're expected. Now, Watson, on him! Lestrade, that's your man!
Got him, Mr. Holmes! Got him!
What's this? What's this, I say?
Colonel Walter. Colonel Valentine Walter.
The same. I wasn't quite sure till now if he was the bird we were looking for. Well, Mycroft?
Sir James's brother. I should have known.
I demand an explanation. I came here to visit Mr. Oberstein.
Of course you did. And we know why, sir. We know everything.
How any English gentleman could behave in such a manner is beyond my comprehension.
Oh, it's true. Before heaven, it's true. Don't think I haven't hated myself every minute of it. Thank heavens it's over at last.
Colonel Walter, you must have taken an impression of your brother's keys.
Yes. I was in need of cash. I'd been gambling. I knew I could get money from Oberstein. I went to the Woolwich office that night and
Yes, and young West must have seen you and recognized you in the fog as he passed there with his fiancée.
Yes. He'd been suspicious of you for some time. He left his private concerns and followed you like the good citizen he was.
And then I suppose he saw you steal the papers and he came after you to this house and to his death.
Oh, before heaven, I didn't kill him, gentlemen. It was Oberstein when he rushed to the door and demanded what we were going to do with the plans.
Yes, but you helped to lay him on the roof of the train when it stopped outside.
Yes, I helped. Oberstein made me.
Why did you put the 7 papers in his pocket?
To divert suspicion. To make everyone think it was West who was the thief. Oberstein kept the important ones, the only ones he needed.
Your brother, Sir James Walter, suspected you too. It was that killed him.
Yes, he suspected too. He saw me with his keys one day.
Now, you have an address for Oberstein on the continent, I presume?
Yes.
You'll write to him then. You'll tell him that you have discovered an important detail missing from the plans he has. You'll say that you can't leave the country yourself, so that he must come back to you. You'll meet him, say, in the smoking room at the Charing Cross Hotel at noon on Saturday next. Will that serve, Mycroft?
Quite admirably, Sherlock. I could hardly have conceived it better myself. I'll be very surprised indeed if it doesn't fetch our man.
And it did. It's a matter of history now how Oberstein came to the lure and was safely engulfed for 15 years in a British prison. In his trunk were the vital papers, which he put up for auction in all the naval centers of Europe. As to Holmes, I learned not long afterwards that he spent a day at Windsor, whence he returned with a remarkably fine emerald tie pin. he told me that it was a present from a gracious lady in whose interests he'd carried out a small commission. Then, as he played his violin that evening, his eyes traveled slowly from the pin where it lay on the table to those famous revolver practice marks he once had made on the wall of our sitting room, spelling out V.R. And it required no great effort of his own deductive methods for me to guess the lady's august name, and to reflect that the emerald pin would forever recall to my friend's memory the notable adventure of the Bruce Partington plans.
The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, based on the original stories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, have been dramatized anew with original music composed by Sidney Torch. Sir Ralph Richardson played the part of Dr. Watson, and Sir John Gielgud that of Sherlock Holmes. The program was produced by Harry Allen Towers.
Established in 1999, you're listening to the oldest streaming old-time radio station on the internet today. You're listening to Old Time Radio USA.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now, here we are once again in Dr. Watson's study. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
What incident are you going to tell us about this evening, Dr. Watson?
Well, I haven't quite decided. Supposing we... What was that? Oh, it's the fire. Top log has fallen off. Where did I put that poker? Oh, here it is. There we go. Ah, that's better.
Oh, what a curious old poker, Dr. Watson. It looks as though it had been seen many years of service.
Yeah, so it has, my dear fellow, so it has. It belonged to Sherlock Holmes himself in the days when we were sharing rooms in Baker Street. You know that... I think I could do no better than to tell you the particular incident that poker recalls to my mind.
Well, please do.
I can't recall any case which presented more singular features than that which we always referred to as the adventure of the Speckled Band.
Speckled Band? What does that mean, Dr. Watson?
We'll get to that in a minute, Mr. Bell. But first...
Men, hot summer days are with us again. And after a day spent under a hot, broiling sun, does your hair look as stiff as straw, dry, matted, or tangled? Does the humidity make it stringy and look rumpled and unattractive? Then don't make the mistake of plastering your hair down with greasy, sticky goo. Instead, put Kreml Hair Tonic on the job. Kreml is that famous modern hair tonic, such a wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing. Kreml has just enough light oils to keep dry, stringy hair neatly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy. It never leaves any unpleasant odor. Kreml always feels clean on both hair and scalp. You see, Kreml is able to give you all these advantages because it contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. So, men, make Kreml a daily must this summer. For that handsome, clean-cut look from morning till night. Kreml, Kreml hair tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the adventure of the Speckled band?
It was early one April morning, very early, I might say. Holmes, as you doubtless know, was a notoriously late riser. So you can imagine my surprise to find him standing fully dressed by the side of my bed.
Watson, I say, Watson, wake up. Watson, old fellow, if you don't manage to wake up immediately, I shall be obliged to empty the contents of this water pitcher over you.
What's up? Is there a fire?
No, a client.
Oh, a client?
Quite so. A client. It's a girl, a rather charming-looking girl. She's waiting in the sitting room now.
She?
Here, I'll open the door crack so you can take a look at her.
A lady dressed in black and so heavily veiled that you can't tell a thing about her. Where's my other slipper?
On the contrary, my dear Watson, we can gather a great deal about her. Here's your slipper on the table where you left it last night as a paperweight. Your tie, your good tie, is on the third shelf behind Boswell's Life of Johnson. I presume that's the one you want, inasmuch as it's the one you always wear when you wish to make an impression on one of the opposite sex.
Don't be silly, old man.
But to return to the young lady, she left home very early this morning, came by train, and yet she had a good drive in a dog cart along heavy roads before she reached the station.
Holmes, you're trying to be uncanny again.
Not at all, my dear Watson. It's as plain as the nose on your face. The left arm of her jacket is spattered with mud. There's no vehicle save a dog cart which throws up mud in that disgusting way. As for the train journey, I observed the second half of a return ticket in the palm of her left glove.
I never even saw it.
Oh, yes, you did, Watson. You merely did not notice it.
Well, that's all very interesting, but I think we've kept the young lady waiting long enough. Shall we go into her?
By all means. You go first. You're certain to create the more favorable impression.
Oh, thanks very much. Good morning.
Oh, is this Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
I'm that gentleman. This is my intimate friend and associate, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
You may speak freely before him.
Oh, I see.
Won't you sit down by the fire? I observe that you're shivering.
No, thank you. It's not the cold that makes me shiver.
Oh? What then?
This fear, Mr. Holmes. This terror. I can stand this strain no longer. I had to come to you.
I shall be happy, madam, to devote myself to your case if you'll just lay before us everything that may help us in forming an opinion on the matter.
My name is Helen Stoner. I'm living with my stepfather, who is the last survivor of the Royalists of Stoke Moran, an old Saxon family.
Oh, I say, Holmes, I heard of him. He's a doctor, isn't he? Went out to Calcutta.
Yes, that is my stepfather.
Oh.
While in India, he married my mother, the young widow of Major General Stoner. My sister Julia and I were twins. We were only 2 at the time of the marriage.
You were brought up in India then?
No. Dr. Roylott was forced to return to this country due to a scandal.
Scandal? Oh, really?
Watson, don't interrupt.
Oh, what was the scandal was it?
Shortly after that, my mother died, leaving about £2,000 a year to Dr. Roylott as long as we, my sister and I, resided with him. However, in the event of our marriage, we were to receive $550 a year apiece.
And did either of you marry?
No. As a matter of fact, after Mother's death, a terrible change came over Dr. Roylott. He quarreled violently with everyone in the neighborhood, so that we were left almost entirely to ourselves. His only friends are a band of wandering gypsies whom he permits to encamp on the property from time to time. He also has a passion for Indian animals.
That's true.
At this moment, he owns a cheetah and a baboon.
Not very cheerful surroundings for 2 young women.
Oh, one gets used to things. The only person we were allowed to visit was a sister of Mother's. While Julia was there, she met the man to whom she became engaged.
I see, and of course your stepfather objected violently.
No, surprisingly enough, he did not.
Oh?
He offered no objections whatever to the marriage.
But I thought that you said that neither of you had ever married.
So I did, Dr. Watson. Julia did not marry because within a fortnight of the day which had been fixed for the wedding, she died.
Died?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. Under the most horrible circumstances.
Can you describe this unfortunate event in detail?
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. Every second of that dread time is seared in my memory. The bedrooms at Stoke Moran are on the ground floor. They open off a common passage. Of these bedrooms, the first is Dr. Roylott's, the second my sister's, and the third my own.
I see.
There's no communication between them. Do I make myself clear?
Perfectly so.
The windows of the 3 rooms open out on the lawn. The fatal night, we'd all gone to our rooms early, having carefully locked our bedroom doors on account of the cheetah and a baboon, which were allowed to wander about at will. Suddenly, as I was about to blow out my light, I heard Julia knocking at my door. Just a minute, I'll unlock the door. Why, Julia, you look as pale as a sheet. What's the matter?
Oh, nothing. At least, nothing I can put my finger on. Maybe it's the wind and the rain. Oh, lock the door, Helen. I'm afraid.
Afraid? Whatever of?
Well, I really don't know. I feel what the Irish call say, as though death were lurking around the corner. Something seems to keep trying to warn me.
Oh, nonsense, Julia. You're upset. Perhaps the excitement over your wedding. Why aren't you asleep?
Well, I can't. Father keeps pacing up and down next door. But it's not that. It's what? Tell me, Helen. Have you ever heard anyone whistle in the dead of night?
Never.
I don't suppose it could be you in your sleep.
Oh, Julia, don't be absurd.
Well, the last few nights I've heard it. A low, clear whistle, about 3 a.m. And for some reason, it seems to be warning me.
Well, it might be those wretched gypsies in the plantation.
Well, probably. And yet, if it were on the lawn, I wonder that you didn't hear it, too.
Oh, you know how soundly I sleep.
Oh, well, I'm probably being very foolish. I'll go back to bed and let you get some sleep. Helen?
Yes, what is it?
Would you mind standing here until you hear me lock my door?
Of course not, silly.
Well, good night.
Good night, you goose. There. Gracious, she's getting jumpy. She'll be glad when she's safely married. Listen to that wind. What was that? Nothing. I'm getting as nervous as Julia. I hope nothing. Julia! Julia, what's the matter? There was a whistle. I heard it. Julia! Julia, open the door! Julia! Julia, what's happened? Don't stagger like that, darling. I'm coming to you.
Louis, it's the band. The Speckled band.
Julia! Julia, what do you mean? Oh, merciful heaven, she's having convulsions. Father! Father, help! Help!
And what was found in your sister's room?
That's the strange part. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The windows were barred by old-fashioned shutters with broad iron bars, and the door was locked on the inside. My sister was alone when she met her doom.
Any marks of violence?
None.
What about poison?
The doctors examined her for it, but without success. It's my belief that my sister died of fright. Pure fright.
When did all this happen?
About 2 years ago.
And why do you come to me at this late date?
Well, I myself am expecting to be married shortly to a man I've known for many years. 2 days ago, some repairs were started in the west wing of the building, so that I'd been forced to move into the room where my sister died. To sleep in the very bed in which she slept. Imagine, then, my thrill of terror when last night, as I lay awake thinking over her terrible fate, I suddenly heard the low whistle which heralded her death.
Good gracious me. Quiet, Watson.
I jumped up, lit the light, but could find nothing. I came straight to you as soon as it was daylight.
If we were to come down to Stoke Moran today, would it be possible to look over these rooms without the knowledge of your stepfather?
He spoke of coming into town today on some important business. It's probable that he will be away all day.
Excellent. You may expect us then, sometime this afternoon, if that is convenient.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you so very much. I shall look forward to seeing you again this afternoon. Goodbye, Jim.
Goodbye. Well, my dear Holmes, what do you think of it all? What do you make of the sister's dying words, the speckled band?
It may merely have been the effect of delirium. Or it may have referred to the band of gypsies who sometimes wear spotted kerchiefs. Then again, it may be something much more deadly. dear, dear, dear. Someone seems to be very anxious to see us. Come in. Which of you is Holmes? That is my name, sir. I am Dr. Grimesby Roylott of Stoke Moran. Indeed. Pray take a seat. I will do nothing of the kind. My stepdaughter has been here. I traced her. What did she say to you? It's a little cold for this time of year. You put me off, do you? I've heard of you before. You're Holmes, the meddler. Holmes, the busybody. Holmes, the Scotland Yard jack in office. My dear doctor, all this does not alter the fact that it is still decidedly chilly. I seem to feel a draft. Would you mind closing the door from the outside? I will go when I've had my say. Don't meddle with my affairs. You'll find I'm a dangerous man to fall foul of. Look here.
Look out, Holmes. He's got the poker.
Watch this.
I say, Holmes, he's bent our poker almost double.
My dear fellow, give me that poker. I really can't allow you, sir, to go around breaking up our little household, even if you are a good 40 pounds heavier than I am. Allow me.
Good heavens, Holmes, you've straightened the blasted thing out again.
Well, I'll... Just the same. Look out for me. Both of you.
Charming fellow.
Quite. And now, Watson, breakfast. Then I have 1 or 2 errands to do. After that, suppose you meet me at Waterloo Station at about 11:30.
Right you are, Holmes. I'll be there on the dot.
And you might slip your service revolver into your pocket. It's an excellent argument with a gentleman who can twist pokers into knots.
In just a moment, we'll see what awaits Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson on their visit to Dr. Roylott's home, Stoke Moran. Are you one of the many men who find it difficult to keep your hair neatly groomed in summer? Does the burning sun bake and scorch your hair, making it look messy and not the least attractive? Then try Kreml Hair Tonic. Just notice the amazing change in the appearance of your hair. You see, Kreml does lots more than just keep your hair looking handsome. This highly specialized hair tonic gives you your money's worth. It contains a unique combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. And if the sun dries your hair so that it breaks off and falls, Kreml helps condition the hair in that it leaves it feeling so much softer and more pliable when you comb it. At the same time, Kreml removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so cool, refreshed, and alive. So be smart, men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, you were to meet Sherlock Holmes at Waterloo Station. Is that right?
Quite right, Mr. Bell. And an hour or so afterwards, found us walking in a country lane. You got a match, Holmes? What a perfect day for a walk in the country.
I'm glad you enjoyed.
Isn't that a house poking its head above those trees over there?
Yes, that must be Stoke Moran, the home of our genial friend, Dr. Roylott. I fancy we'll find it shorter to go across the field, and safer in case the good doctor has returned home.
Yes, there's a stile over there where the lady is walking.
And the lady, I fancy, is Miss Stoner. No, my dear Watson, don't try to vault the fence. Remember, you're getting a bit plump.
Oh, rubbish.
Better climb the stile sedately, as I'm doing. That's it.
Good afternoon, Miss Stoner. You see, we've been as good as our word.
I've been waiting so eagerly for you. Everything has turned out splendidly. Dr. Roylott has gone to town, and I don't expect him back before evening.
We had the pleasure of making the good doctor's acquaintance.
Good heavens, he follows me? What will he say when he returns?
You must lock yourself in your room tonight. If he is violent, we shall take you to your aunt's at Harrow.
Don't you think we'd better be getting on with our business before that appalling fellow comes crashing home?
Quite. Handsome old house. I see you're doing some repairs.
Yes. This is the wall of my own room that they're working on.
Quite. By the way, this wall seems to be in pretty good condition. And this, the center room, was your sister's, I take it?
Yes. I'm sleeping there for the present. We can enter it by way of the French window.
First of all, if you'll be good enough to go inside and lower the iron shutter, I'd like to see just how impregnable it is.
Oh, certainly, Miss Downs. Just a moment.
Yes. Seems to be quite impassable. You may raise it again. May we come in?
Please do. This is the room, just as she used to have it.
Chest of drawers, bed, dressing table, 2 wicker chairs. Nothing very extraordinary, huh? Wait a minute. I say the bed's nailed to the floor. It's immovable.
I never noticed that.
The long cord. It's a bell pull, isn't it?
Well, yes.
What does it communicate with?
The housekeeper's room, but I don't think my sister ever used it.
It seems newer than the other things.
Yes, it was put up about 2 years ago.
Do you mind if I give it a pull?
Certainly not.
Uh-huh. As I thought. It's a dummy.
Dummy? You mean that it won't ring?
No, Watson, it definitely won't ring. It's not even attached to a wire. Very interesting. It seems to be securely fastened just above the opening of that little ventilator.
Oh, that ventilator was built several years ago, too. It goes into Father's room.
I see. Suppose we take a peek at the doctor's room.
Certainly. Come this way.
I wish you'd hurry, Holmes. I'm getting a bit jumpy. What if the doctor should decide to come home?
This is my father's room.
Nothing very exciting in here, just the usual man's bedroom, except for the safe. You don't by any chance know what he keeps in there, do you, Miss Stoner?
Oh, business papers, I think. I've only seen the inside of it once, and that was some years ago.
There isn't a cat in it by any chance?
No. What a strange idea.
Well, look at the source of milk.
No, we don't keep a cat, but of course there's a cheetah and a baboon.
I say, Holmes, look here at this vicious-looking little whip.
Yes, I noticed that. The interesting point is that it is curled upon itself and tied so as to make a small noose of whipcord.
Hello? What's that? I thought I heard a carriage. Yes, by Jove. Must be the doctor coming home.
Go, please. Quickly, before he finds you here.
First of all, promise to do as I tell you. Your life may depend on it.
I'll do whatever you say.
Dr. Watson and I must spend the night in your room.
Mr. Holmes.
Let me explain. We will hide at the lower end of the meadow. We can see your window from there. You must lock yourself in on pretense of a headache. When you hear your father retire to his room for the night, open the shutters of a window. Put your lamp there as a signal to us, and then withdraw into the room you used to occupy. The rest you must leave in our hands.
Yes, I will. Only please go now. No, not that way. Here, through the window.
I say, Holmes, do we have to wait in this blasted meadow all night? I'm chilled to the bone in this wind. Why can't we go down to the inn? I'm sure we can see the windows of Stoke Moran just as well from there.
Impossible, Watson. When the time comes, we must go, and go quickly. A human life may depend on the speed with which we can reach the house.
I say, you give me the creeps.
What's that?
Look, do you see it? There in the bushes. A ghastly misshapen figure.
Must have been the baboon. Look, Watson. The middle window.
By Jove, it's our signal. The lamp.
Come along. Hurry. And walk quietly.
So dark, I can hardly see her. I think there'll be a storm coming. Just listen to that wind.
Here we are. Step inside through the window. No noise. I shall sit on the bed. You sit in that chair. Ready? I'm going to turn out the lamp.
I say, Holmes.
Shh. The least sound would be fatal to our plans. Have you your revolver handy?
Yes.
Good. Whatever you do, don't go to sleep. Your life may depend on it.
$11:00.
Yes. We're in for a long and dreadful vigil.
Holmes, my foot's beginning to go to sleep.
Whatever you do, don't move. That wicker chair makes an infernal racket.
Holmes, do you hear that? There it is again. You don't suppose this place is haunted, do you?
That, I fancy, is the cheetah. Look, Watson. The ventilator. A gleam of light. Now it's gone again. Wait. Things are beginning to move. Quiet now.
What's that?
Quick, Strike a match. Strike a match, Watson. There it is, the filthy thing. There. Take that. And that.
Holmes, what is it? For the love of heaven, why are you slashing at that bell pull with your whip?
You saw it, Watson? You saw it? Aha, my friend. Too late. Too late. Ah, how ghastly. How perfectly vile.
No! Holmes, what does that mean?
It means that it's all over. And I think for the best. Come. We shall enter Dr. Roylett's room. Keep your pistol handy. Come quickly.
But Holmes, the door's locked.
Break it in. Wait, I'll help you. Now then, 1, 2, 3.
Holmes, look! On the floor, the doctor. He's dead. Good heavens. What a ghastly look on his face.
As I expected.
Do you see that? The band round his forehead?
That, Watson, is the speckled band.
Great thunder, it's moving. It's a snake.
Yes, a swamp adder. The deadliest snake in India. The doctor died within 10 seconds of being bitten. Here, hand me that dog whip with the noose. Look out, Watson, don't go near. That's better.
Hey, what are you going to do?
The noose goes over the reptile's head, so. And we lift it into the safe. So, and close the door.
I think I'm going to be sick.
No wonder. The doctor's thrust his little playfellow through that ventilator for the last time, I fancy.
But look here, Holmes, I still don't quite understand.
It's all quite simple, my dear Watson, amazingly simple. Our good doctor made use of the reptile to remove his stepdaughter when she threatened to get married and deprive him of her income. That snake has been living in the safe for some time, I imagine. The saucer of milk was its daily ration.
Yes, but how did he succeed? I mean, by what method?
Look at that chair. He must have been standing on that chair. Notice the heel marks, Watson. He thrust the slimy thing through the ventilator into the next room, being careful not to touch it with his hands, but to use the whip, as you saw me do. It was the noose on the lash of the whip that convinced me this afternoon that we were on the right track.
I see. And that was why the bell pull was attached to the ventilator in the other room, so that the snake could crawl down.
Exactly. And that was why the bed was nailed within reach of the bell pull.
Oh, the filthy beast.
The first attempt was not successful in the case of either sister. The doctor, fearing this might happen, had trained the adder to return when he whistled, so that he could try again.
And then it must have been his whistle we heard when you began slashing at the bell pull.
Quite, my dear Watson. When he heard us, he wanted to recall it. But it was too late. The reptile had already thrust its venomous head through the ventilator when I began to slash at it. The snake turned back so enraged that it attacked the first thing it came in contact with, which, by mere coincidence, happened to be its master.
But look here, Holmes. Doesn't that make you indirectly responsible for the death of Dr. Roylett?
Possibly, my dear Watson, possibly. But I cannot say that it is likely to weigh very heavily upon my conscience.
Ladies, here's a sensational beauty tip direct from Hollywood. When you want your hair to look its radiant best for an important date, just do this the night before. Give your hair a 10-minute glamour bath with Kreml shampoo.
I certainly agree with that, Mr. Bell. And you know, Kreml shampoo is the same shampoo used by those famous beauties, the Powers model.
Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays that way for days.
And please bear in mind that Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It is not a cream shampoo. It's not a drying detergent. Not a harsh soap. It's entirely different.
Yes, Kreml shampoo uncovers all the natural highlights that lie concealed in every woman's hair. Yet it never dries the hair. In fact, Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle. It removes dandruff flakes the first time you use it.
Kreml shampoo whips up a luxuriant active foam, even in the hardest water. It rinses out so easily and never leaves any dull, soapy film.
So, ladies, why not buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter and glamour bathe your hair to a vision of tantalizing loveliness? Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, I think I'll tell you a most bizarre and extraordinary story about a murder that was committed under our very eyes in our own flat.
In Baker Street? Good heavens, that certainly was unusual.
Not only was murder committed, but the murderer was later acquitted in court. If it hadn't been for Holmes's brilliant detective work, Oh, well, I'll tell you all about that next week. I call it The Adventure of the Innocent Murderess.
Sherlock Holmes' adventure was adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Speckled Band. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the innocent murderess. Full-time civilians, part-time sailors. That's the thumbnail sketch of the Naval Air Reserve, which this week celebrates its first post-war birthday. 30,000 strong Naval Air Reserve stands ready to man the carriers and the planes of the reserve fleet, should any national emergency arise. We doff our hats to the reserves of naval aviation, the officers and men of Naval Air Reserve on this, their first post-war birthday. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
This is Old Time Radio USA, your source for the classic old-time radio shows you love.
From New York City, the makers of Clipper Craft clothes for men and more than 1,200 leading retail stores from coast to coast present Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's immortal character, the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes, starring John Stanley. This week's story, The Adventure of the Red Death. Come, Watson, we're off to the docks.
Right you are, Holmes.
Not a word to a soul about where we're going. That applies to you also, Mr. Edwards.
I shall be absolutely mum, Mr. Holmes.
The silence is not so much in your interest as in that of the good people of London. Can you conceive of anything more likely to start a horrible panic than the knowledge that tonight a pyromaniac runs amok in the city's streets? You owe it to yourself to look your best, even in the crushing heat of summer. And that's precisely why you should choose a Clippercraft summer suit. When you wear a Clippercraft suit of special, lightweight construction, you keep cool because millions of tiny woven windows afford such perfect ventilation. You look cool, too, because Clippercraft suits are so perfectly tailored, they retain their crispness long after other suits are heat-crumpled and saggy. From every angle, a Clippercraft summer suit is a fine investment. For only $33.75 to $42.50, your Clippercraft suit will be envied by men who pay much more. Clippercraft is one of the greatest values in America because you benefit from the economies of the unique Clippercraft plan, whereby more than 1,200 independent merchants from coast to coast pool their tremendous buying power. So look better, feel better, and save money. Look for the Clippercraft label. Dr. Watson, what did you mean when you gave tonight's memoir the title of The Adventure of the Red Death?
Well, it was a type of death criminally administered by a certain gentleman in our story, Mr. Harris. The adventure began at a waterfront cafe by the London docks, which extend from the Tower Bridge to beyond North Woolwich. Mile upon mile of quays, warehouses, great basins that are bursting with shipping from the farthest corners of the earth. At the West India Docks, there was a cafe called the Smiling Duchess. It was frequented by men of all the seven seas. In the back room, the owner, Peter Nichols, sat by a huge oaken table in the flickering candlelight, talking to a very attractive young lady named Vicky, who was employed there as a waitress.
Is he here, Vicky?
Yes, Peter. Waiting just outside that door.
Have much trouble bringing him here?
Oh, he acted up now and then. What's to be expected? He's come from a home for the criminally insane, you know.
Bring him in.
Come in, Captain West.
I don't remember this place. Was I ever here before?
Now, easy, Captain, easy. Sit down.
I don't remember you either. Or this girl. Why was I brought here? The doctors won't ask more questions, will they?
Oh, no, you're out of that place, you see. Now, sit down. I'm Peter Nichols. You remember old Peter, the Smiling Duchess now, don't you?
Oh, you certainly remember me, don't you? No man that comes here forgets Vicky.
I think, Captain, it was just a few years ago. Every time your ship docked here in London, you'd stop by for a swig of rum.
Peter Nichols. Oh, yes. Now I know you.
You're out of the insane asylum, Christopher West. Can you understand that? Now, listen to me. You're free. We got you out. Me and Vicky.
You did?
We needed you. We needed your talent. So Vicky spoke with a guard at the asylum. I gave her money. She used her charms. The guard let you out and turned you over to her.
Ah, I see. I was confused. It happened so quickly. I'd fallen asleep in a cell. The guard woke me up.
You're going to enjoy yourself now, Christopher West, the way you like to. We're going to find whatever equipment you need, and you're going to start fires for us.
Yes, a fire. They wouldn't let me. Most people won't admit the satisfaction, you know, but I do. Did you ever see how a man's eyes light up when he sees a fire? I want to see things burn, the flames eating away at the guts of the building till it's a black hulk. Where? When do we start the fire?
Soon enough.
Why do you want me to start it? Do you like to see things burn? Do you love the flames as I do?
Yes, Captain West. That's why. There's a warehouse nearby on Cuba Street by the Southwest India Dock Pier. I want to see it burn. That's why we took you out of that awful hospital.
I am grateful for that. They wouldn't let me start fires. And when I can't, there's pressure in my head. I can't stand it.
We need you. You can start fires so quickly, so easily, so surely. And no one will know.
When?
Tonight, Captain West. Tonight! The equipment, Captain West?
Yes, Peter. I'm ready.
Go on. We'll meet you back at the inn.
Good. At the inn.
Go on, Captain. Start the fire. That's it.
Oh, hide behind these bales, Vicky. I'll watch him. Oh, wait. His shadow's disappearing, see? In the dark there? Now, wait. There, the flames. See them?
Yes, they're spreading quickly.
A marvelous idea of mine, eh, Vicky? West doesn't know what we'll do now while the fire's blazing. If they suspect arson, they'll chase him, not us. We can always deny having anything to do with him if he talks. He's legally insane, irresponsible.
Flames. They're furious now. We better leave. We've our part of the job to do now.
Come on.
Your name is Edwards, sir?
George Edwards, Mr. Holmes. I'm the director of the Hampton County Hospital for the Criminally Insane.
Are you a physician, sir?
No, Dr. Watson. Mine is a political post, which is why I've come here to Baker Street, Mr. Holmes.
Just why have you come here?
A patient has escaped. Terribly dangerous man. Captain Christopher West, a pyromaniac. He's been responsible for the destruction of millions of pounds worth of property, the hospitalization of hundreds of firefighters,
fire victims and the death of a considerable number of others.
Yes, I see. Why haven't you adopted the ordinary procedure and alarmed the police?
If I were to tell the police, Mr. Holmes, there'd be an investigation. My political opponents would charge me with incompetence and I'd lose my post. You must find this maniac. Will you, Mr. Holmes?
Can you describe this Captain West?
I brought our file card, his portrait and characteristics.
Yes, intriguing. The circumstances of his escape, Mr. Edwards, you've looked into that, I presume?
I have, Mr. Holmes. A guard was careless. He left the cell door open. West must have stolen down the hallway and then over the wall.
Well, is it a simple matter to climb over your protective wall?
Are you gentlemen implying that I've been lax?
Well, it's curious, sir, that an escape from a home for the insane, which should be child's play, a glance in the wrong direction by the guard, and the entire city of London's menaced. Curious juxtaposition of facts, Mr. Edwards.
Your juxtaposition, Mr. Holmes?
Come, Watson, a cab. We're off to the docks.
Why the docks, Holmes?
Because of this dossier I've read about Captain West. He was a sea captain with a great passenger ship. He was ordered to retire by his firm. He refused. When the firm insisted, he became furious. He desired revenge. He set fire to their ships as they lay in the docks.
Yes, but I don't see...
He found there was an immense satisfaction in creating fires. He became a pyromaniac. Always in the area of the sea. Always a fire that threatened a harbor and the ships at anchor there. We're off to the docks, Watson, and Mr. Edwards. Not a word to a soul.
I shall be absolutely mum, Mr. Holmes.
The silence is not so much in your interest as in that of the good people of London. Can you conceive of anything more likely to start a panic than the fact that tonight a pyromaniac runs amok in the city's streets?
One of America's proudest traditions is the saga of the staunch clipper ships. These wonderful vessels established honest New England quality everywhere in the world. Today, quality is identified in finer men's suits by the Clippercraft label, symbol of quality and economy, guarantee of finest tailoring and choicest materials. The fine independent local merchant who sells Clippercraft clothes invites you to inspect his great collection of lightweight Clippercraft suits at only $33.75 to $42.50. Compare them with suits costing many dollars more, and you'll agree that never before has there been such value in lightweight summer fabrics, such value in style and workmanship. Undoubtedly, Clippercraft clothes represent one of America's greatest clothing values. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes bearing the Clippercraft label. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
These leading stores in the metropolitan area are proud to add their names to Clippercraft in your suits, sport jackets, and tropicals. In Manhattan, Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th. John Wanamaker Men's Stores, Broadway at 8th and 67 Liberty Street. In Brooklyn, Abram and Strauss. In Newark, New Jersey, Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark. And in Jamaica, the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue.
Dr. Watson, you and Mr. Holmes were dashing to the docks of London to find Christopher West, the escaped pyromaniac.
Yes, so we were, Mr. Harris. That night our carriage raced across the cobblestones by the edge of the water. As the silhouettes of countless ships passed to our right, London's fabulous docks flew past. The giant granaries, the endless acres of bales and packing boxes, the crates of wool and ivory, the pungent odors of oil and coffee, spices. Well, Holmes, you know as well as I do that London's docks are 45 miles long. How shall we find this Captain West?
He's already announced his whereabouts, Watson.
He has?
Smoke. See it? Curling up toward the sky from that warehouse on Cuba Street.
Well, Jove, he's been here, and at work, too.
Evidently the fire's been extinguished. We shall steal into this warehouse and see what we may see. Stop here, driver. Step down, Watson.
Yes, all right.
Keep the change, driver, and wait here. Now, let us hope that this smoldering ruin's been abandoned except for a watchman or two. Then we may examine this warehouse without incompetent meddling from the police. Careful, Watson, it'll be extremely dangerous.
Yes, rotting wood, loose beams, this blasted smoke.
Yes, keep your handkerchief over your mouth. We shall proceed very quietly into this wreckage. Slowly, carefully. The maniac may be hiding here.
Well, we've searched extensively, Holmes. Any clues?
I can confirm, Watson, that this fire is of incendiary origin. Most likely, therefore, the work of Christopher West.
How can you confirm it?
By those dark stains upon the floor.
They look like ink.
Quite. In carrying his bottle of ink, West spilled a few drops accidentally as he ran.
But why ink, Holmes?
This ink, Watson, is the type frequently employed for marking purposes at a laundry.
Well, I must confess I'm more mystified than ever.
Certain laundry inks, Watson, contain a compound that may be made highly explosive, so much so that they'll ignite themselves. Of course, assisted by bits of cotton and sawdust or paper, they'll soon create a considerable blaze. This is an empty warehouse. It's most unlikely that laundry ink would be found here unless it were brought in by a saboteur.
Look, Holmes, through the window. Another fire.
Run, Watson. We must reach that fire. Unless we make haste, we shall never find Christopher West.
Well, here goes the last of the firemen, Holmes. They've managed to extinguish the second blaze. There'll probably be a third shortly.
Yes. Watson, doesn't the geography of these two gutted warehouses strike you as fascinating?
The geography, Holmes?
Yes. Think of their positions. Then of the fact that both were deserted before the blaze began.
Where does that lead you, Holmes?
Close to the solution, Watson.
Then you know where Christopher West can be found?
Not just yet, but that may be determined quickly.
Yes, but how?
By my retiring to the King Neptune, which is at a popular tavern nearby, for a glass of beer.
What the devil, Holmes? Hundreds of persons may be trapped and burned alive in the next few hours because this pyromaniac is scurrying about, fiendishly starting fires. You're retiring to a tavern with a glass of beer?
Oh, I've no use for the stuff, I assure you. It'll offend my taste. My preference for wine and for a certain vintage cannot be satisfied, however, at the King Neptune. Therefore, I must drink beer. Wait by our carriage, Watson. I shall rejoin you shortly with the exact site of Christopher West's next attempt.
Doing well, Captain West. Very well tonight.
I'm proud of my work, Peter. Did you see the last warehouse? Like a great candle in the sky.
Let him start another fire, Peter. Just one more. We need one more.
That's foolish, Vicky. The fires so far will appear to be accidents. At least till we've taken care of our end of this business.
We haven't enough, Peter. I want a bit more.
A third fire would be too much. You're greedy. You should be content.
Greedy, am I? After all these years as a grubby waitress, putting up with anything those drunken sailors did just to sell another glass of beer? Oh, no, Peter. You've a fine idea we're going to see it through for all it's worth.
Greed's been the ruin of more than one, Vicky.
Will you let him start one more fire? If not for yourself, then for me. Oh, Peter, we can go away together. You, do want to be with me, don't you?
All right. Then we get out. Out of London, out of England.
That's it. Do you know where the next fire should be?
I do. Come, Captain.
There should be more fires, Peter. Many more. No, I'm like an artist who hasn't finished an exquisite painting.
Now, this way. Quietly and hurry. There we are, Captain. That warehouse.
I see it.
How will you start this one?
This candle and this bucket of lime. Both will leave no trace. They'll be destroyed. I take the candle so, and with one delicate stroke, the magnificence of a great fire is born. The lime is clever of me, eh, Vicky? Kerosene leaves an odor. It'd make them suspicious. Not lime, though.
Go on, West. We'll see you after. Come on, Vicky.
I'm with you, Peter.
Now I do it again. I'll step into the warehouse. Just lift this window and climb in. And now, Christopher West, That wonderful moment again. That moment before you start the fire. You're alone, free, no one to disturb you. There, the match.
Who's there?
The watchman. I'll wait behind this post.
I said who's there? Here I heard you.
You break my neck! Shut up! Good. To make a sound, I'll break your neck. I can snap it like this. I'm going to start a fire and you won't stop me. You won't live to see that they take me back. I won't go back. I won't start the fire the way I planned, though. I have a much better idea. I'll start it with you. Yeah, I can hold you and put the candle to your clothes. There. Clothes are burning, see? Soon the flames will reach deeper. Your face, your eyes, your hair. Burn!
Stand away from that, Watson. Your coat, Watson. Take it off. Smother those flames. I'll keep an eye on West.
Right, Holmes. Coat. I'll put out the flames here.
Merciful God, thank you.
Don't attempt to run off, Captain West.
But I just wanted to...
The watchman all right, Watson?
Yes, Holmes, yes.
Who are you?
I am Sherlock Holmes. This is Dr. John Watson. The gentleman before you is Christopher West, an escaped pyromaniac.
Glory be.
We shall return you to the Hampton Hospital, Captain West.
No, I'll never go back.
You won't have to go back. This revolver in my hand makes sure of that.
Peter Nichols.
Now, don't reach for the revolver in your coat, Dr. Watson. Just stand where you are. You too, Mr. Holmes?
You were just in time, Peter.
Yes, so I was, Vicky. Come along, Captain. We'll go. All of us.
Holmes, he'll kill us.
Oh, no, Dr. Watson. I'm a mite too wise for that. You see, if I know if they ever catch up with me, I'll serve time. But I won't hang for murder.
You'll serve time, Peter Nichols, for robbing the warehouses adjacent to those where you had West start the fires. Perhaps the robberies haven't been discovered yet, eh? The silks, the perfume, the furs you plan to take during this third fire?
They'll have to catch me first, Mr. Holmes. Come on, Captain Vicky. Let's get out of here fast.
Run, Vicky! Run!
Right behind you!
Don't try to follow us.
Let's go after them, Holmes.
Don't budge, Watson. He might change his mind and shoot. Just wait. Now, Watson, your revolver. Take it. If they want to play hide-and-seek in and out of these countless crates and bales along these docks, we'll play their game.
I'm exhausted, Holmes. My leg. See any sign of them?
I saw a glimpse of Vicky's colored dress off to the left by the gangways of the wine vaults.
Let's go in.
Very quietly, Watson. They may be concealing themselves behind a stack of wine barrels. I could swear I saw Vicky.
Think the three of them are there?
Yes.
Shall we look?
No, they might be waiting for us to do just that. Then they'd pounce upon us. Now, we'll take a chance.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Fire in that direction.
Yes, right. Oh, it's gushing from the barrels where I shot. But Peter, the captain, the girl, no sign of them?
Oh, yes, you got them.
How can you be sure?
Look there. Spattered on the base of the barrels, Watson. Blood.
Well, Holmes, before you light your pipe and relax into one of your typical Baker Street reveries, from which I do not dare to disturb you, tell me, how did you know Christopher West would be at the particular warehouse where you found him?
Will you recall, Watson, my mentioning the geography of the burnt warehouses?
Yes, I do.
I observed that although each was empty, each was also directly beside another warehouse which contained priceless merchandise.
Go on.
It occurred to me that this was a maneuver whereby someone, Peter Nichols as it developed, had deliberately freed Captain West and set him loose to start fires. Peter, who was an old hand at the hoards, must have known the West case and the merchandise. The fire, you see, distracted the police. And during the excitement, Peter and Vicky would sneak into the adjacent warehouse and help themselves.
Aha, I see. But how did you know exactly which warehouse would be next?
Well, you recall I left you to visit the King Neptune Tavern. By drinking a beer with the seamen there, it was a simple matter to listen to their eternal gossip and to determine which warehouse had recently received a shipment of highly priced goods. That indicated the spot where West would most probably strike next.
Sergeant Holmes, why do these things seem so utterly obvious after you've explained them?
Because weak minds are like a microscope, magnifying trifling things, but unable to receive the larger ones. However, for your humble servant, elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. Well, Dr. Watson, the Red Death was a gripping adventure. What became of Edwards, the director of the asylum?
Well, he was innocent enough, Mr. Harris. He discharged the guard bribed by Vicky. Peter and Vicky, of course, received long prison sentences. And Christopher West was safely returned to the hospital.
Well, Dr. Watson, usually at this time I ask you what you've planned for next week, and we look forward eagerly to another exciting adventure with you and Mr. Holmes. But I'm very sorry to say that we've reached the end of our current series, Doctor.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Harris. Summer is with us again. Time for all of us to go scooting off on our vacations. So I regret that we shan't be together for a while.
Well, we'll be waiting for you, Dr. Watson. These evenings with you and Holmes have been most enjoyable.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harris. And our thanks also to the makers of Clippercraft clothes. May I wish you and yours a pleasant summer holiday?
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and more than 1,200 stores from coast to coast have brought you the last in the current series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories were based upon the character Sherlock Holmes created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes was played by John Stanley and Dr. Watson by George Spelman. This week's story was written by Howard Merrill with special music by Albert Berman. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. And this is Cy Harris speaking for Clippercraft Clothes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
The most comfortable shoe sole in the world.
The Neolite sole.
Light?
It's light as leather.
Smart?
It's smart as leather.
And wear?
It outwears leather 2 to 1.
For men, women, children.
Get the Neolite sole.
Step on it.
WOR, New York.
Here at Old Time Radio USA, you'll hear episodes from such classic radio series like
Maxwell House Coffee Time, starring George Burns and Gracie Allen. Night Beat, The Whistler, The Lone Ranger, The Falcon, Suspense, The Great Gildersleeve, The Jack Benny Program, The Johnson Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly.
For these and many more, stay tuned to Old Time Radio USA for more great classics. You can listen anywhere, on your computer or any mobile device like your smartphone or tablet. You can also listen on our official Roku channel from the comfort of your favorite chair. Now, if you want more information on this station, go to www.oldtimeradiousa.com right now to learn more. And thank you for listening.